Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sarah from Stash. We're going to wait a couple minutes to make sure that we have as many people as possible before we begin. But I see a lot of you are here already, so I want to wish you a good evening here from New York City. I have Rachel here with me. I'll be sure to introduce her properly in just a couple minutes. But wow, a lot of people already, and it hasn't even turned to 7:01. So welcome. Hope you're all having a really nice week, January 25th. Good to see all of you here. All right. Rachel, you ready? Nice big sip of water.
Yeah, I know. Getting my throat
All
ready to.
right. All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm so happy to welcome you to this evening's webinar hosted by Stash. I'm Sarah Spagnolo. I'm a managing editor here at Stash. It's my absolute pleasure to have all of you here tonight for this webinar. It's our second webinar this month, our third in 2 months. We've been so thrilled to have such incredible attendance, participation, and engagement, and you're really in for something special tonight. So I hope that you've pulled up a chair and that you're ready for a really unique experience as we talk about achieving your financial goals in 2024. This webinar tonight is part of our Quick Start Your Stash program, which is helping people get started on achieving your financial goals in 2024, the new year. Still is the new year, it's still January. Without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest and host for the day, Rachel Lawrence. A little bit of a bio on Rachel. Rachel spent the past 20 years of her life in personal finance, planning, and coaching. First, learning everything about it from the ground up, as she says, from data entry to strategic management, then finding ways to bring it to as many people as possible through technology. In 2007, she got her certified financial planner certification. She also has an accredited investment fiduciary designation. And a few years later, she got a master's degree in personal financial planning. So, an incredible expert. And we're so happy to have her here. She's worked in financial planning and technology, and now she runs her own consulting firm, Plan Ventures, where she does projects for companies just like this webinar. On the side, she's into outdoor adventure with her family, and we're so very glad she's here with us today. Thanks again to all of you who are joining us and taking time out of your busy lives to spend 40 minutes here with the team at Stash. Rachel's going to begin this session and her workshop, and then for the second half of the webinar, we're going to take your Q&A. So there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. That's where you'll be able to engage with us throughout the course of the workshop, as well as ask questions. We're going to do our best to get to as many of them as possible here tonight. We're also going to be responding to many of you as quickly as we can after this webinar, so be sure to ask us your questions. We are here for all of you. Again, thank you all for being here, and I will let Rachel take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am really stoked to talk to you about achieving your financial goals in 2024. Obviously, a big passion of mine to help folks reach their financial goals. And I'm so glad that you found Stash to do that with. So, what you can expect today, let's talk a little bit about that. We are going to start off actually with it's going to be a little different than you might think. We're going to start off with a mindfulness exercise, which will help us figure out even what those goals might be and what they should be and what you want them to be. So, we're going to spend a little bit of time doing some mindfulness. We're going to pick one or two of those goals. Then I'm going to introduce you to a strategy that is used by lots of experts, pro athletes, A-list celebrities, CEOs, any expert that you can imagine uses this strategy. So I'm going to walk you through what that is. We are going to actively use it. We're going to start writing down some of our answers to it. And then we're going to break that goal down into tiny steps. I'm talking teeny tiny. And hopefully we will get to take the first step towards your goal together today. That's the plan. Sound good? I'm so excited to do this with you. So first and foremost, we need to figure out if you're going to be trying to reach those financial goals in 2024, what are they? So we need to actually decide what matters most to you today. Is it buying a home? Is it getting a degree or education for you or your loved ones? Maybe going on a trip, saving for retirement, saving for emergencies, paying off debt. There's so many different financial goals that we could be reaching this year. So let's start with a mindfulness exercise. We're going to go through a couple little things. So what I want you to do first, again, I told you this is going to be a little different than you might have been expecting. So what I want you to do first is get into a comfortable position. So that could be sitting in a chair. If you're watching this on your phone, you could, sit on a comfy chair. You could lay down if you prefer. Sometimes I like to do that when I'm doing mindfulness exercises, but get in a comfortable position. And we're going to close our eyes if you feel comfortable. I'm going to keep mine open so I can read all my instructions to you, but close your eyes, okay? And we are first going to take a few deep breaths because this is going to calm us down, bring us back into our body, bring us into the present moment, and help us start to clear our heads for this exercise. So 5 deep breaths, and I want you to breathe in through your nose, and then let it go gently. No effort at all. You can let it go through your nose or you can let it go through your mouth. And let's do it again. Breathe in through your nose and out very gently. There should be no effort at all for this breath. In through your nose. Two more breaths, okay? And we're going to do one more. And let that go. Just release everything right now. I even want you to release all the opinions around you. Let's pretend that no other opinions exist but yours. You are the only one whose opinion matters tonight. And I want you to start thinking about this question. What is the most important financial problem or issue? It doesn't have to be a problem. It could be something fun and exciting that you could act on right now, this year. What is the most important financial issue that you could act on this year? You can keep your eyes closed if you like. You can open them. Start thinking. Most important issue. Okay. Again, doesn't have to be a problem. It could be something fun or that builds your stability. Another way to think about this, if this is not bringing anything up right to the surface, is what would you never regret attempting financially, even if you fail? What would you never regret attempting, even if you fail? So let's think about that. Some things probably are bubbling up for you right now. Does anyone want to throw into the Q&A what your thing is? It can be anonymous. You can share your name. What is your top 1 or 2 things that this brings up for you as you're being mindful of yourself? Oh, I love that, Samuel. Yes, increasing income, getting my degree. Ooh, these are great. Buying a house, paying off debt, big one. We're going to talk about that tonight. Going after investment properties, more paying off debt, getting ready for retirement, for sure. Investing and learning to invest, you're in exactly the right place. Saving for children, emergency funding. Oh my gosh, these are so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I love these. Yes, financial freedom, traveling more. Okay, so we have a little bit of an idea, and you can take your time with this, by the way. You can come back to this mindfulness exercise, take a screenshot of it if you like. You can look at the recording of this later, and just come back to it whenever you need to. Sometimes I revisit this exercise 3 or 4 times a year just to make sure that I'm still working on the thing that really matters most to me right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick. It's time to pick. So I want you to think of all those things that you thought of, and maybe you thought of many. If you could only spend your time on one or two of them this year, from what you just let me know or wrote down in the chat, let me ask you it this way. What would someone who really loves you and has your best interest in mind tell you to choose? Not even what you're like, obviously you have your own opinion because you just told me that, right? We pretended that no other opinions exist. Now pretend that somebody who really loves you and has your best interest in mind would tell you to choose one of these things. What are they going to tell you to choose? Or if that doesn't feel right for you, that's okay. What is the thing that you are most excited or motivated to do? Because that's half of the battle, right? Is finding the thing that you're really motivated to get done. All right. Have it in mind, right? One or two things. We're just going to take it one at a time today because what we want to do is really break this down. I want to show you how to use executive functioning skills to really break it down and make it doable and actually get to your goal and actually achieve your financial goal. So here's the technique that is used by pros, and some of you may have already guessed this, but scientific studies have shown the connection between what we think and imagine and subsequent physical actions that we take. So for example, at the University of Utah, they did MRI scans on brains, and it shows that visualizing an action is just as effective as physical practice. So you can imagine why athletes like Michael Phelps will use this, why folks use visualization as the tool for really reaching their financial goals, because it actually makes you practice doing the goal without needing to go do the goal right away. So what I want you to do is grab a pen and paper, or you can grab something to take notes with. Maybe you're grabbing your phone so you can take notes with that, but start a new note. We want a pen and paper or pencil and paper and a way to write some things down because we're going to start writing some things down. Okay, you ready? We are going to do this visualization practice together. So here's how we're going to start. I want you to think about that one major goal, or maybe two, but start with just one of them. Think about that goal that you just decided to try to do this year. And I want you to picture the scene where your goal has been accomplished. It is done. You're traveling more, your company is registered, you've gotten your car, you put your budget together, you paid off your student loans, you learned about investing, whatever your goal was. I want you to picture the scene where your goal has already been accomplished. And I want you to use all 5 senses to really vividly imagine this picture in your head, okay? So first, what do you see? Either around or in front of you. Maybe you're seeing something on your phone. Maybe you're seeing something happen in real life. Maybe you're seeing the new car that you got. Maybe you're seeing your investment balance is growing. But what do you see around or in front of you? And take a moment to write some of this down. So picture this scene. What do you see around or in front of you? Okay. You can keep writing on this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the other senses, and then I'm going to give you some examples. So you're going to have plenty of time to start writing these things down, okay? The next one is going to be, what does it sound like? Are there noises around you? If your goal is to take a vacation, what do you hear right now? on your vacation scene when your goal has been accomplished? Or another way of putting this is, what are people saying? What do you hear other people saying? What do you hear yourself saying? So what does it sound like? Then you want to think about, what does it physically feel like? Is there any sensation that you're feeling in your physical body? If you've paid off your debt, do you feel like a weight lifted off your shoulders? If you have saved for retirement, do you feel security and a sense of freedom, right? If you are buying a home, do you feel the door frame of your new home as you walk into it? Or are you turning on the new kitchen sink, right? So think about all these things and start to picture, what does it physically feel like while you're there? Any tastes that you can sense. Not all of these have a taste, although I'll tell you how I frame this for things like paying off debt in just a second. But what does it taste like? And any smells that you can detect, right? Is there anything you can smell once this goal has been accomplished? The last thing I want you to picture as you're doing all of this is, what will you be feeling internally? What does your brain feel? What questions are coming up for you? What consequences might there be? So if you are saving for retirement, does that mean you are also saying no to other things that are not as important as that? If you're getting life insurance for your family, does that mean that you're thinking more about your own mortality, which can feel a little funny for us sometimes? It's not something we talk about that often. So imagine what you're feeling internally, and I want you to write this down right now with as much detail as possible. And I'm going to walk you through a few examples of what this would sound like, okay? So if you want to stick to a budget this year, if that's your goal, here's the setting, right? Here's the scene where this goal has been accomplished. You have stuck to your budget. I want you to imagine that you see your checking and other account balances growing when you log in to check on them, because you're not spending everything that you make. You hear yourself saying no to spending on the things that don't matter to you, and an enthusiastic yes to the things that do matter. Maybe you feel yourself holding your Stash stock-backed debit card because now you're using a debit card instead of credit cards to make only the purchases that you know you can afford and that you really value. Maybe you taste the PB&J that you brought with you to the pool or the beach or the ski slope or whatever it is, instead of buying the overpriced food at the food stand. And you may even feel like you smell the extra cash in your wallet because you're making choices that are in your own best interest with your budget. And then internally, you might feel the pull. Maybe you're feeling the pull of making those purchases that don't matter as much because they're easy, or you get a short-term rush of dopamine from making a purchase. But you also know that you're solid enough in what you truly want that the short-term temptations are not going to trip you up. And in the times that it does trip you up, you know that you can pick right back up again by making choices that make you feel better in the long run. So that would be painting this vivid picture of sticking to a budget. Let's do debt. Let's imagine paying off debt. And I want you to keep writing on your own goal if these are not your goals, but if these are, maybe grab some ideas from them. So with paying off debt, let's imagine that what you see when you have paid off your debt is, when you log into your debt accounts, all the balances are zero. Amazing. You see that your credit score has jumped into the 700s or maybe even low 800s when you check your credit score. You hear yourself making plans for fun and exciting things now that fit into your new budget because you don't have these debt payments to make anymore. You physically feel lighter. You have this weight lifted off your shoulders or your chest. There's no more sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach when you log in to look at your accounts. You can also maybe feel the cold ice that surrounds your credit cards that you have literally frozen and kept in your freezer so that they are hard to get to, literally freezing your credit cards. You can smell the flowers or maybe a good meal that you bought using your debit card to celebrate making your last debt payment. You can taste the drink that you make at home, or maybe you buy at the local coffee shop once in a while, now that you have room for little pleasures like that. And it tastes like freedom from debt. You also know that internally, you're not going to feel that shame or that guilt for your debt, but you also know that you might feel like you can go wild with spending without those debt payments. So you feel careful inside too, and you probably will for a long time. You recognize that you might feel tempted to spend again now that your full balance is available on your credit cards again. So you have ways of keeping them out of sight and out of mind. And you're replacing that temptation to spend with saving. Every time that you're about to go spend, you decide to save instead. And maybe deposit a little extra into your stash account every single time you're about to spend something that you didn't need, so that instead of hurting yourself, you're getting closer to your other goals. All right, and then last one. So hopefully this has been enough time for you to really write down this scene as vividly as possible for yourself. Let's say you're saving for a special goal. You want to go on a tropical vacation. We all probably want to do that once in a while, right? Tropical vacation. So imagine what you see is that you're sitting on that beach with a drink in your hand. You see the blue sky above. You see clear water below. If you log into your accounts right then, you can see that you have the money to cover the full cost of your vacation. You hear the seagulls, the crashing waves, maybe some local music playing nearby from the food stand. And it feels like the perfect temperature to be next to the water. Not too hot, not too cold, but with a nice breeze. You can feel the sand between your toes and the glass dripping with condensation. You taste the drink, which is exactly the taste that you love. You can smell sunscreen, fresh seaweed, maybe some coconut, I don't know. And you feel calm and relaxed with no worries about the next moment. You feel present, alive, and grateful. And you know you're going to hold this memory inside, and you can come back and revisit anytime that you need to once you go back to your real life. Okay, how do we feel about this scene that we have pictured where the goal has been accomplished? Does anyone want to share a little bit in the Q&A about what you wrote down? Maybe just one or two vivid things that come up for you when you start to imagine your goal. What are some of those really vivid things that come up for you? All right. Yeah, definitely the drink in hand. You feel amazing. You feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. Yeah, that sense of satisfaction. You've done it. You've hit it. What else do you see? What is popping up vividly for you when you imagine the scene where your goal has actually been accomplished? Yeah, the new car driving right in, right? Yes. Feeling on top of the world, sunshine on my face, the lightness of my shoulders when the weight of the debt is gone. The smell of jasmine. Oh my gosh, so good. That feeling of a lifelong dream realized. The sigh of relief and the exhale that we can make. Yes. Seeing more and more money in your checking and savings and your stash investment accounts. Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness, the smell of popcorn, buying something you can pay right away off, fulfillment. Oh my goodness, I love this. Okay, so hold this in your head, all right? Keep this where you can see it and come back to it. Repeat this visualization. We don't want to just do this one time. I want you to imagine this happening over and over. Once, twice, every single day, once or twice a week, whatever works for you. But I want you to keep imagining this over and over. This is the technique that pros use to practice hitting their goals. Okay. And it's not just visualizing it, because we need to then take that visualization and we need to break it down into different steps. So I want you to now come back to this visualization of this goal that you have chosen for yourself. And I want you to just imagine as many of the steps as you can right now. So maybe just start jotting some ideas down. What are some of the steps that you had to take? Imagine the steps that you had to take to get to your goal. It doesn't matter if you get it perfectly right, by the way, and if you forget something, don't worry about it. Just write whatever comes to your mind. So write down, what do you think the steps are to actually hit that goal of yours? Okay. You need to think about tiny little things too that you will do along the way to make sure that you achieve this. So if you want to pay off your debt, I want you to imagine what each one of those steps to pay off the debt might look or feel or sound like. And this is something you can do on your own time too. Take this, flesh out your imagination even more. Use those 5 senses that we talked about. Use every single 5 sense and imagine each step and what it feels like, because you'll actually be practicing it before you go do it. And I want you to write those all down too. You don't have to do it right now, but I want you to come back to this and I want you to do this later, okay? And just update this with more and more steps as you can. So the next step for us is to take this goal and this visualization. You've written down a few of those steps, I'm sure. Let's think about the very first step. What was the very first step that you think you need to take, that you imagine yourself taking to reach your goal during your visualization? Maybe you haven't thought of it yet. Maybe it's just coming to you right now. What is the very first step that you feel like you need to take? Okay. If it, for example, let's say with paying down debt, right? Very common. I might say that my first step is to start making extra payments towards my debt. And then I want to take that and break that down into even further steps, more and more tiny little bite-sized steps. So to actually make those extra payments towards my debt and pay down the debt more quickly, I need to stop spending on my cards. I need to know how much I'll have left over at the end of every month. To do that, I need to figure out how much I spend on a regular basis and compare it to how much income I make. And then to know how much I spend, I probably need to review my spending history over the last few months. And to review my spending history over the last few months, I need to link my accounts to either a budgeting tool or download them into a spreadsheet or use pen and paper if that's your jam. So my very first step to pay down debt is not just to make extra payments, it's actually to go pick a way to review spending. So what is this first step for you? I see some of you throwing some of those into the Q&A, coming up with a plan, stop shopping online. Let's think about, what are these first steps? What is that first step for you? Pick a first step. Work your way backwards. When you think of the first step, see if there's anything else that might come before it. And then we're going to break that down even further. Even further. What is the tiniest possible first step? So, for example, if I need to review my spending as a way to start paying off debt, then a mini step would be to think, just reflect in my own head and think about what has worked or not worked for me in the past. Is there a system that I hated or loved? What do I need to avoid? What worked really well? If there's nothing, then maybe I need to do some research. So I might need to review my options to see what else is out there now. And I need the tools to use to go do it. I either need pen and paper or a phone or a computer. So I need the tools ready to go do this. All right. And Let me just go back one because this is like the tiniest first step. So if I need those things to do my first step, in this paying down debt example, the tiniest first step is actually probably just simply think about what did work, or to start doing some internet research about ways to track my spending and stick to a budget, right? So what is your tiniest possible first step? What is your tiniest possible first step? All right. Getting a passport renewed. That's a great example of the first step. Now let's back that up. If you need to get your passport renewed, what do you need to do as the very tiniest first step? Because to get a passport renewed, you probably need a new photo. You need to fill out the paperwork. You probably need to go to the post office to submit it unless you can do it online. So you need all of those things done. You have to get it all together. But what do you probably need to do to start working on that? You need to open your computer and go to the passport renewal website. That's probably the tiniest first step that you could take in getting a passport renewed, for example. Removing cards from my phone apps. Oh my gosh, this is such a good one for trying to stick to a budget or paying off debt. What is the tiniest first step in removing your cards from your phone apps? Picking up your phone. And not just going mindlessly to all the apps that we normally go to, picking up your phone and purposely going in with the intent, right, of removing them. But picking up the phone is literally the tiniest possible first step for that. Taking cash out of your account for spending instead of credit cards or debit cards, wonderful first step to trying to get where you need to go. So what is the tiniest step that you can do? So this is what I mean. And there's so many good tools to help you do this, by the way. If you're like wondering what is the tiniest first step, one of my favorite tools to do this is goblin.tools. That's www.goblin.tools. And it's an AI system that will help you take any task and break it out into smaller tasks. So I really like that for breaking this down into teeny tiny steps. And I want you to think about, in this scenario, we've just figured out what our goal is. We've visualized it very, very vividly. We started thinking about what our steps are. What of those steps, that very tiniest movement towards your first step, could you do right now, right this second, or today, after we get off, to move towards your goal? And that is what I want you to do right now. So, what is that tiniest first step? And can you take it right this second? If you are trying to figure out how to pay off your debt and you don't have a tool to review your budget yet, maybe type into your search bar budgeting apps or how to stick to a budget or something like that. Okay. If you are trying to get better at investing, maybe open your Stash app or go on the Stash website and let's check to see when is the next workshop specifically on learning about Investing 101, or what videos already exist that you can go back and watch. All right. Watching this webinar. Hey, you're doing your first step right now. I love that one, Casey. That was great. That's amazing. I love this. So this is what we are here for today. We've gone through a lot of our time already, so I want to make sure that we have time to answer questions, but I also just want to throw out a little thing about what's next. So here's what's next. To reach these goals, you need to keep doing this visualization. You can come back and watch the recording of this video anytime you need to. You can let us know if you have any issues that come up, ask customer service. Follow Stash, and you can follow me too if you want on social media. I'm on Instagram at Rachel, what is my name on Instagram? RachelSL.FP. So like financial planning, right? Rachel, RACHEL, SL at .FP. Oh my gosh, I'm totally going to get that wrong. Follow Stash. They just posted it. You can follow along. You can keep going to these workshops. I want you to take this visualization and practice it over and over and over. and keep visualizing those teeny tiny first steps to see exactly what you can get done. But I also want you to just take a second and congratulate yourself for taking that first step tonight. You've already done your first tiny step in achieving your goals in 2024.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, everyone, for so many incredible participatory comments. I know you couldn't see one another, but we could see all of your comments, and we'll be sure to surface them in a really interesting way. We have a couple questions that I'd love to talk with you about, Rachel, if you have a few minutes from the audience. A first question is, how do I know what financial issue should be most important to me?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so here's how I frame it. There's generally a few things that I would recommend as best practices when it comes to your personal finances. So first and foremost, making sure that you're spending less than you make, right? That's the first step to anything. That's the foundation of all of this. If you're not, then sticking to a budget should be one of the first things that you work on. Lots of ways to do that. The next thing would be to have a little bit of savings available to help you get out and stay out of the debt cycle. So emergency savings. You could aim for 1 month of take-home pay, or if that feels like too much, even just $500 to $1,000 is a great first step. Then you're going to pay off the debts with very high interest rates, over 25%, even before investing, because it's almost like, I don't even know how it would be possible to make over 25% guaranteed all the time, every single year, on investments, unlike the debt that you're paying that interest rate on. So once you've done that, you've paid off those high debts, make sure to go get the match at your employer if you have one. And if you don't, once you've done those things, you're going to pay down debts with over 10% interest rates, because those are still really high, 10 to 15%. And then you really want to set aside a little bit more for emergency savings. So getting, 3 to 6 months of either expenses or income is a great goal. And you can do that a little bit at a time. You don't have to do it all at once. And you can do it alongside of other goals as well, like saving for retirement, saving or investing to buy a home, but, saving for an education, et cetera. So that's sort of the order in which I would prioritize them.
Thank you. And a couple questions have also come in. Denise wanted to ask, she's saying that her goals is making enough money so she can send money to her parents and pay for their care, not worry about paying other bills. That's such a common desire of so many people that are within the Stash community. So Denise, thank you. I hope you took the first steps to figuring out how that you will do that for yourself. One question we had here is, should we make this starting goal a long-term goal or something just for this year to start? Do you have any thoughts on that, Rachel?
I think you can do either, to be honest. This could be a really long-term goal like retirement. So imagining retirement and visualizing it is one of the biggest steps in actually reaching your retirement goals. So even just taking the time tonight and then over and over to visualize what retirement looks like for you. There's research that shows that it's like super helpful in actually hitting your retirement goals. So even if you do have a very long-term goal like that, I think taking the steps this year to start to reach them is incredibly important, because without that, you're not ever going to get started, right? So today is the best time to get started. Yesterday would have been better. Today is the time that we have.
100%. Tim's asking, how do I know how much I need to retire?
Great question. It's different for everybody. It totally depends on the visualization that you have for yourself in retirement. Do you visualize yourself driving luxury cars, traveling every month, having 5 houses? Or do you imagine yourself in like a small apartment and, it's just you and you get around with public transportation and you enjoy simple things? Those are going to have really different price tags for retirement. So the very first most important thing that I always tell my clients to do is to visualize the retirement that you want to have. Then you can start to price it out, because I know, for example, that if I take 10 trips a year, it's going to cost this much more than if I took 1 trip a year, for example. Once you have that price, then you can use calculators. I'm sure Stash has some of them too. You can use the calculator, figure out how much do I need to save in order to get on track to have that much money in retirement. Okay.
Thank you. I think we'll just take a couple more. Joanna is saying visualization is so powerful and I appreciated the session. quick question. Do you have any suggestions on changing a money mindset and belief system?
Oh my goodness. So many. This is actually after 20 years of doing this and a master's degree in it, I will tell you money mindset and all the woo-woo stuff, all the soft stuff, not the numbers. That soft stuff is what makes the difference. Soft. It's really what truly makes the difference in reaching goals or not. So changing money mindset, there's so many tools to do this. You can check in not just with your head, but also with your heart and your gut, and use what they call somatic finance, which is how money feels in your body, to help you really change the way that you react to things, and maybe process some of the things that come from childhood. Because most of us, our money mindset gets set by the age of 7 or 8 years old. Which is when we really have learned about money. Okay, so some processing involved. Therapy is a great tool. I talk about this with my therapist. I've even used some tools like hypnotherapy for certain very deeply ingrained beliefs that I have had to uncover why I have those and try to maybe root them out or reframe them and to change the way that I view the world around them. But there are tons and tons of money courses out there that help you kind of with that money mindset. Self-reflection is probably the place to start, and just trying to understand what you need inside.
Maybe one last question. Latrice is asking, what type of debt should you pay off first?
Ooh, such a good question, because there's so many different types. Typically, it's going to be the highest interest rates. That's what's costing you the most money. And so whether that is a personal loan or whether that is credit cards, typically credit cards are going to have the highest interest rates in general. Right now, we're seeing average interest rates on credit cards somewhere in the mid 20%, which is super duper high. So probably credit card debt first. And typically the thing that saves you the most money is to pay off the highest interest rate first down to the lowest. But if you find that that's not working, you're not getting enough of the excitement feeling of having accomplished something, you can also do a different version called the snowball, where you pay off your smallest balance first. And that gives you that win under your belt pretty quickly. It helps you feel better, maintain your momentum to keep going. So even though it doesn't save you quite as much money, sometimes that really helps people stick to their debt pay down plan to pay off the lowest balance first. So you pick between those and do what feels right for you.
Great. That's such good advice, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pull up a slide with some important disclosures. I want to thank everybody for coming and spending some time with us here tonight. Again, thank you all. We really appreciate you being part of the Stash community. In a couple weeks, we're going to have another webinar that I'm sure you and I hope you'll all find just as engaging, as intriguing as this one. We're going to continue hosting webinars over the course of this quarter and beyond. So thank you for joining us, always on different topics. And I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Again, I'm Sarah from Stash. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye, everyone.